Show here on WSGW. A couple of guests in studio with me this morning. One of them had the gall to beat me out for Radio Personality of the Year a couple of years ago. I've never forgiven the turkey, but it's okay. No, he happens to be Kareem Bowen with us this morning. Good morning, Kareem.
Good morning, Art. How you doing?
We're doing well indeed. Also with us this morning from our staff, we say good morning again to Jonathan Dent.
Hello, hello.
Hello, hello.
Just along for the ride.
Yeah, I know better. There is an organization called HELP that we're going to learn about this morning. There is also coming up an inaugural Community Violence Intervention Conference. And there's also something called the Saginaw Community Violence Intervention Coalition. We're going to find out about these things this morning. And Kareem, since you're involved in them, let's start with the basics of some of these organizations. What is the HELP organization?
Well, HELP is a CVI organization. That's Charlie Victory Indigo, and that stands for Community Violence Intervention. And Community Violence Intervention is really a new way of approaching violence, and it's approaching violence from the perspective of the fact that those who are at highest risk for violence to take place may be most effective at curbing violence that takes place in those communities.
I'm only going to contradict one thing you said.
Okay.
It's not new. And the reason I say that, many years ago,
absolutely,
about 10 of us went to Chicago to look at an intervention program designed exactly that way. But there was such an enormous cost to it. Dow is actually the one that flew us down. They were going to fund it, but we all came back. The cost was just prohibitive.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. When I say new, I'm new, talking about to this area.
Yeah,
because
okay,
I was out in Oakland.
That.
Yeah, and I was out in Oakland in 2001 when I was first introduced to the concept of community violence intervention, working with organizations. If anyone's familiar with the Oakland area, there is a city called Richmond, which is really kind of just across the bridge from San Francisco. And we were going there, and when you go to the malls in Richmond at that time, this is 2001, there were, guards that were there with military assault rifles because the crime was so bad in that area. So I first got involved at a school, Horace Mann Elementary in Oakland, center of Oaktown, and that's when I was first introduced. But in terms of how we have been dealing with this violence in the Midwest and in our particular area of Saginaw, it is really kind of moving toward a trend of this is the way that they feel that is best to engage.
Yeah, and we also have a Saginaw Crime Prevention Council.
Yeah.
But that's more law enforcement, dealing with law enforcement and others that have to deal with the situations and how they deal with them. The object is not to have the situations, first and foremost.
Yeah, that would be best.
That would always be best. Always be best.
Well, I've got both of you here.
Uh-oh.
Because you both have different perspectives on this, and I'm not really an insider. Saginaw has a certain reputation when it comes to crime, violent crime.
Absolutely, yep.
How accurate is that, especially in recent years?
Not. Here's what I say. That's not to say there's no crime. Obviously there is. There's gun violence. There are homicides, although the numbers are down. But Saginaw got a bad rep. And Kareem, you can address this, but if you looked at a crime map of Saginaw, you would look at downtown, and you wouldn't see anything marked off because there was nothing going on downtown. There was no crime downtown. It was, for the most part, for lack of a better descriptive, neighborhood crime. Would you agree?
Actually, I probably would have said yes. But one of the things that we did this year is we were able to partner with the National Institute for Criminal Justice Reform. Mm-hmm. And so they came in, and probably since about September through January, they actually did and ran numbers on our city statistics and where crime happens and what happens in those areas. And so a centralized area for that crime, if we were to look at pinpointing where crime happens, would be the downtown area. So when they were looking where places that are doing intervention should take place, our local downtown kind of is a centralized space for where crime happens in our community. So specifically downtown, I would agree with you and say no. But if we were to look at
Well, it depends what they call downtown and how big a region they. manage.
well, I mean, they're colored marks, pinpoints,
Right,
and so
right.
that's some of the stuff that we'll be sharing, because not only that, Art, but one of the things that we probably would think as a community is that the number of individuals or the age grouping of individuals would probably tend a lot younger. You know, everyone, they did a poll and we were thinking, hey, 18, 19, 20, 22. And really our target population for intervention strategies, where most people are engaged in violence in our community, is actually 30 years old. I was kind of surprised that the number was so old.
Let me ask you this. As a people,
Yeah.
where have we gone wrong teaching right from wrong and respect for human life?
Man, that's a loaded question. I don't know if I started Sunday school or if I'm starting.
Any way you do it, I don't care.
I think that as a people, we have become we've moved away from things that I think were central to who we were as people, as family, as community. There was a whole thing that, the reason 9/11, and this is kind of, I want to throw this out there. The reason why 9/11 was able to happen was because we have stopped the entire idea of knowing our neighbors, communicating with neighbors. And we create these communities where, you live in a suburb or you live in an area. You don't talk to your neighbors. You don't know who your neighbors are.
I got another word for it: complacency.
Absolutely. And so I think that with the dying structures of family, the more centralized focus on me, my, four, and no more, and lack of community, I think are all of parts of why we see the things that we're seeing now today.
And you look at poll after poll, we're moving away from organized religion. We're moving away from God. But yet, now I'll tell you a story to get your reaction, because Kareem is a pastor. When the Saginaw Crime Prevention Council was formed back in 1998 by the university, we had decided that it was going to be a bottom-up organization, not a top-down organization.
Right.
We had 10 subcommittees. Only one still exists today, the Media Law Enforcement Committee. But one of those committees, and the first one to drop out, was church, because Pastor A was afraid Pastor B was going to steal his flock from Pastor C and Pastor D. We couldn't get them off the dime to do anything, yet they had the most potent voices from the pulpit. We could not get them off the dime.
When was that, Art? About what time?
98, 99, 2000, in that period.
Now
it's changed.
Well, okay, how so? What do you mean?
I think that particularly black pastors communicate a lot more now, get together now, agree more, do more together.
Do you think so?
At least that's my external vision of knowing some of them. You don't think so?
Well, I think that there is, let me say this, and then I'll address that. I think that there is a changing. You mentioned earlier that there is a moving away from organized religion. And I think with that, I think that many pastors don't understand that we are less relevant than we really think that we are. And what I mean by that is that the entire civil rights movement was something that was birthed and really carried through, the annals of the, churches and the religious organizations. They were the center point for what was happening in that time. I think
you also had a fantastic communicator leading the march.
Yeah, I mean, there were several, right?
There were several, but Dr. King was
phenomenal. Absolutely.
He was phenomenal.
And most of them came from the churches.
From the church.
That's what I meant. They came from the church.
Or, or if we're looking at a religious institution, so even with like Malcolm X and other folks. And so what I think now is that with that moving away, we have moved to a place of inward looking instead of upward looking, that the role of a pastor in many cases, I don't think that they carry as much in terms of how the community looks and at them for direction. And I don't think that that's a good thing.
No, I don't either.
I don't think it's a good thing, but I think that it is a growing sentiment. But I think that there are a number of pastors, because I think that there is a desire for community, for pastors to be across, like out of the four walls of a church. They desire the things that you were saying, where we can't get along, to get over that idea of, those are my members. I don't believe that philosophy whatsoever. But there are a number of pastors who are coming together in our community, which I think is what you're referring to.
It is.
That are trying to kind of get back to that, the camaraderie and the building across interdenominational lines. How do we begin to work and look like who we are supposed to represent?
All right, we're going to take a break, come back. We'll tell you more about the Community Violence Intervention Conference coming up, and more on this conversation with Kareem Bowen and Jonathan Dent in studio with me this morning.
Gotta go.
I have somewhere around 30 vendors that have signed up to come and be a part of what we're doing.
Wow.
Registration has been going extremely well. I think our initial goal when we were doing this was 150 folks. We thought that would be success. And we're at about 115 people that have already registered for the conference, so it's exciting.
And I see you have a speaker, keynote speaker.
Yes, his name is Yafencio Harris. We call him Big B. I was assigned or appointed to, asked to be a part of the governor's state council for community violence intervention. And he is one of the...
Let me stop you there.
Yeah, go ahead.
You mentioned the state's council. Is this a state or national movement, this intervention type program?
Yeah, it is. And it's interesting how this happened. But when I presented this information to Police Chief Bob Ruth, I sat down with him and Mayor Moore, and I said, hey, I think that this is kind of how we need to be approaching this. I didn't know anything other than what I had experienced, some 20 years ago. And I gave the information to Chief Ruth. He went to a Police Chiefs Association meeting. I think it was in Chicago or somewhere, Illinois somewhere. And while he was there, he starts texting me and sending me like pictures of what's going on. He goes, this is exactly, what we were talking about. This is the direction that they're encouraging police chiefs to begin to work with CBOs, community-based organizations, to provide this type of programming. And CVI is the method in which they're going to be really pushing for it with law enforcement.
It's interesting because at this time in our lives, when budgets are strained, police departments are having trouble recruiting and all of that stuff, this could be, I hate to use the word replacement because I don't want to see them replace the police, so to speak.
I never want to see that happen.
But this could be a stopgap alternative for the old, what we used to call a beat cop.
Yep.
The policeman in the community.
Well,
Cops on patrol.
Well, I like to look at it this way. And we were, on the state council, we like every city is kind of represented, every region is represented. Right. And we were saying, like, how do we really term what this is? And the phraseology that we've come up with is that we look at it as a healthy separation of work that needs to be done as it relates to violence in the community. So there is a role that everyone has to play. And I believe that law enforcement has a role, and also community citizens and community-based organizations have a role. And so this work is talking about bringing them together and having a healthy separation. And we understand that there is a partnership in community to some degree, where community organizers and community citizens have a role to play. We know what happens in our community, and we have to get away from this no snitch mentality and begin to talk within our communities about what's happening, because we know how to address those issues.
I mean, ideally, the role of police was always prevention, so they wouldn't have to get to the arrest on the other side. But with the reduction in force and all of that, they've become call answerers. I mean, realistically, they don't have a lot of time to do the prevention work that needs to be done.
Yeah.
And this is where citizen organizations and neighborhood organizations have to step up to the plate.
Absolutely. So there's three ways for us to look, 3 things that I want us to like really look at. And this is what this conference is bringing, an awareness that we often look at prevention strategies as what it is that's necessary. So we're looking at intervention, CVI, crime, community violence intervention, are strategies that have impact that you see in 0 to 3 years. When we look at prevention, which most mentorship programs and engagement along that lines, those are things that we look to see from 3 to 5 years. And then there are community building and transformation type things, which are really 5 to 10 years. And so helping the community understand that we're looking at intervening. So we've had situations where we've actually brought individuals that were in hot conflict come and sit down. And we have these conversations. We're talking about conflict intervention and building an ability for individuals to come back and have conversations with each other, giving them the tools that are necessary to de-escalate. And so individuals who are actually out in the community, pew-pewing at one another, we've been able to kind of help to build opportunities for ceasefires.
And there's, that's an important word, ceasefires, because it seems that not all, but some of the crime is reactionary. And by that I mean,
oh, for sure,
you have 2 individuals who have a grudge. One takes it out with a gun and eliminates the opposition, if you will. The opposition's family now says, we're going to go get him. And the intervention program we looked at in Chicago was dispatched to hospitals and places like that to try and prevent the reaction, which eliminates one more crime, if you will.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you're mentioning that, because what the governor did, or the council did, is we actually brought in the consultant from the one that works in Chicago. So they have been able to reduce their crime rate significantly, even though it's still high.
It's high.
Based upon where it is. They are a very unique community, but that individual that has been on the scene and working with them has come in and is a consultant for the work that we're doing. And so that is why this conference is so important, because we're kind of bringing to the city of Saginaw, which, for those who are listening, we rank number 2 in the state for gun violence per capita, right behind Benton Harbor. So we do have an issue that we have to deal with. Is it everyone in the community running around shooting at each other? Absolutely not. If you live here, you know that. So there is a small percentage of individuals, and you know this, there's a small percentage of actors that are doing the majority of this crime. And so what we're doing is looking at strategies that have worked across the country, it's particularly the things that they're doing in Chicago, bringing in healthcare institutions and allowing them to understand. We talk about stop the bleed and those other things, because hospitals and community organizations and churches and schools are all a part of the ecosystem. When we look at our county jails, detention centers, they are all a vital part of how we address these issues. If we get them when they have an incident that occurs where they have interaction with law enforcement, we begin preventative matters and begin to engage them in those things. We can then curb that level of violence from even beginning to take place.
Yeah. Take a break, come back with our guests, and more ahead here on the Art Lewis Show.
A 401k can be an important...
Help's been around for a couple years now.
Yeah.
What are some of those strategies that you've been putting into action?
So when we first started, and I'm glad you asked that question, when we first started, I knew that we would be able to get the support that we needed if we started with prevention. So we started out mentoring, very intensive mentoring, working with young people, assigning at sometimes a 1-to-1 ratio with young people. So we started in the prevention area. So that means things that make an impact from 3 to 5 years. We then went backwards, and we went from prevention and started intervention strategies. That's when we developed a street task force that walks the street, knocking on neighborhood doors. We have begun to implement what we call neighborhood safe zones. And so that's where we actually get with community residents, knock on doors. When things happen, we've been getting our 800 number out, 888-298-1945, where people can call if they see things. We will show up on the scene if they don't feel like, we want to get involved, and then having those conversations in the heat of a moment and intervening and having conversations with folks who are doing things to make sure that, and that's the 0 to 3. So we have seen positive results. As Art said, our numbers are actually going down. Go ahead.
However, I want to point something out. It's not and should not be progressive. By that I mean you don't start with CVI, then you progress to prevention, and then you prevent, then you go to community building. The first two need to coexist.
Absolutely.
Because the invention is for now.
Yes.
And the prevention is to prevent the CVI from having the need to do anything in the future.
It's just when you see
got to
the
have both
results
of those
coming.
together. You got to have them together.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Because the idea that intervention and prevention go together is essential, because prevention is the way that we cut the supply off to the streets. It's the way that we choke it out. We get involved in these young people's lives who have had, a number. If we look at the adverse experiences that these young people are having, they are through the roof. And so if we can get in and begin to create preventative matters that we can suffocate the pipeline to the streets, then it will help us. And so intervention and prevention have to happen at the same time. You're absolutely correct.
Got to go back to something I asked about early on about right and wrong and teaching right and
Absolutely.
wrong and something. And this, it doesn't know any racial or religious or ethnic lines. Family structure is important.
Mm-hmm.
How do we go into communities, I don't care where it is, where there are broken families and fix them? Got an answer for that?
Well, I'll say this. I grew up from what most people would say is a broken family. I grew up as a single parent kid. My mom was 19, turning 20 years old when I was born. So in how people would define that is a broken family. I don't like that term. I like that we are a family that functions differently. Because the thing is this, when we have those systems in place, what we have to restore that we lost was that we have to have men and women in the community that are willing to fill those gaps and become surrogates. Now, those surrogates aren't just, mom and dad living in the same home, because we've had those issues, but they're coaches who understand that your responsibility is not to just coach Johnny to become an NBA athlete, but it's also that you have to be a strong voice who helps them to understand how to do, what's right and what's wrong. You have to be present on the court and in their daily lives.
And that I agree with you. The term "broken" is not a good term.
Yeah.
Because there are many, many single-parent homes,
and it's growing,
where that parent is very effective in raising their children.
Yeah.
But it is obviously much easier when you have a loving father
Absolutely.
and mother in the house.
Absolutely.
Who share the responsibility.
Absolutely. I'm a man of faith, so I believe in the institution of marriage, and I believe that design was created so that there was a balance in the parenting landscape, right? But for years, that has not been the case, and as we look to where we are, the degradation of what we would consider the marital institution is changing. And so that means that as that changes,
society has to change.
We have to change, and how we engage and what family looks like has to also change.
Well, and family is where community begins. It's the smallest unit of community. So where that is deficient, the rest of the community needs to understand.
Absolutely.
Well, they do, and there is one given that I state that no one has ever contested.
Okay.
No child is born into this world with a prejudice bone in their body.
Absolutely.
Not one. It is a learned behavior.
Mm-hmm.
And no child is born into this world with a tendency to be violent. It's
Absolutely.
a learned behavior.
Absolutely.
And so consequently, it has to start at birth.
No,
And
I agree.
The process has to go from there.
But what isn't a learned behavior that we have consequentially is the fact that a child, the idea of self-promotion or looking out for myself or telling a fib. Did you do that? So those things are things that we have to begin to understand, that when we have at a very young age those things that correct errant behavior, and the community comes around and we decide what's good and what's bad, right? And so we have to begin to get back to an idea. There were certain things that we just didn't do growing up in the past. But now it's like whatever you do, YOLO, you only live once. I'm going to live my best life now. And we've left the idea of a shared system of values that really express what we think is appropriate.
Values, that's a defining word. It really is. Got to take a quick break. We'll come back with another segment, and we'll tell you more about the Community Violence Intervention Conference coming up this Saturday.
Upgrade your home with the
With you in studio, Kareem Bowen, Jonathan Dent. Coming up, the inaugural Community Violence Intervention Conference. It's a community call to action. Does the community have to register? You said you had 115 registered so far. How do they do it?
Yes, they can register very easily if they go to helpcvi.org. HELP, Charlie, Victory, Indigo.org, or CVI.com, helpcvi.com. When they go there, the registration form will pop up on the screen, and they'll receive a notification once they've completed their registration.
Cost?
It's absolutely free to the community. So we're excited. We have HBK Boom, who is going to be performing. He is a very popular name among young people in our community. Our Congress woman will be there, Kristen Rivet. Our state Representative O'Neill will be there. And Mayor Brenda Moore, who has been really the catalyst for the work that HELP has been able to do in our community by really getting us into places and spaces and helping us have access to be able to get the work done.
And if you come across her, be prepared to be hugged.
And be prepared to dance.
Yeah, dance, hug, right, yeah, all those things. How long a day is this for people that attend?
Well, it's going to be starting at 9 a.m. To 3 p.m., but you won't just be sitting there listening. There will be opportunities for engagement. There will be some panels and some roundtables. And this year, for the inaugural, we are going to do a youth summit where we're actually bringing in young people, working with all of the youth groups, the athletic teams, so that we can really begin to engage with young people on how they see violence, how they can begin to be a part of this, and the role that they play in making sure that our community stays safe.
What are you hoping the result of this day is? So
this day is really about bringing the work that has been happening across the state. Saginaw is kind of new to the ball on this one, helping them to understand the strategies and ways that the community has to build an ecosystem. So we're looking with the partnership with National Institute of Criminal Justice Reform. What they came in and said, there's a lot of people that are doing things, but we are hoping that we can, through this conference, bring all of the elements that are a part of the ecosystem that responds to violence in one space, identify what role they play, and then get them to the cogwheels that are necessary that we can begin to effectively work together. Because our city is, even though our numbers are high per capita, it's not big enough to have 50,000 people doing the same thing. So bringing people together under one umbrella to do that work because we're going to be better together.
And all of this, again, is Saturday, Thompson Middle School, 3021 Court Street in Saginaw. And if someone wants to get involved over and above the conference.
Yeah. So we do a bi-weekly meeting, and on that bi-weekly meeting, and that's every other Tuesday at
This
5.
is the help group?
Yes, the help group. So this week was one of our bi-weekly meetings. So every other week we meet at 5:30.